Most people think strength is loud. Anger, control, dominance. They're wrong. Real strength is quiet, invisible, and rare. If you have these signs, you're stronger than you realize. Strength is not what we show the world. It's what we master when no one is watching. Each morning we rise into the same battlefield. Our thoughts, our impulses, our reactions. A very strong person does not try to conquer others. They conquer themselves. Here are 10 signs you're becoming one of them. 1. You pause before reacting. Emotion knocks. You don't open the door. In today's world, everything is designed to trigger you. A rude comment online, a passive-aggressive message, a coworker taking credit, a partner's tone that feels off. Emotion doesn't knock politely. It pounds on the door. Anger says, reply now. Ego says, defend yourself. Pride says, don't let them get away with that. The problem? Most people open the door immediately. They send the text, they post the reaction, they escalate the argument, and seconds later, they regret it. In a culture of instant responses and viral outrage, reacting feels powerful, but it's not power, it's surrender. Real strength is rare. You feel the heat rise in your chest. Your heart beats faster. Your mind starts building its defense. But you pause, you breathe, you observe the emotion instead of obeying it. You let the wave rise and fall. That pause changes everything, because when you don't react immediately, you create space. In that space, logic returns, perspective returns, control returns. The solution is simple, but not easy. Count to 10. Step away from the phone. Delay the response. Ask yourself, will this matter in a week, in a year? That single pause protects your peace. It protects your reputation. It protects your relationships. And here's the hope. Every time you pause instead of react, you strengthen your discipline. You train your mind. You become less controlled by the world and more in control of yourself. Emotion will always knock, but you don't have to open the door. And that is where real power begins. 2. You endure discomfort without complaint. You know growth lives there. They feel it every day. The early mornings when the alarm feels cruel, the workouts when their muscles burn, the silence when no one claps for their effort, the lonely grind while everyone else seems to be celebrating online. In today's world, comfort is everywhere. Food delivered in minutes, entertainment on demand, validation at the tap of a screen. And because comfort is so accessible, discomfort feels unbearable. The problem? Most people run from it. They quit when it gets hard. They complain when it feels unfair. They distract themselves instead of pushing through. But they are different. They understand something powerful. Discomfort is not punishment. It is preparation. When they endure the awkward beginnings, they gain skill. When they sit with difficult conversations, they build emotional strength. When they stay consistent without immediate results, they develop discipline. It's not easy. There are days they want to stop, days when doubt whispers, "This isn't worth it." Days when comparing themselves to others feels heavy, but instead of complaining, they lean in. The solution is quiet resilience. They reframe the pain. This is building me. This is temporary. This is shaping my future. They focus on long-term growth instead of short-term comfort. They measure progress in effort, not applause. And here's the hope. Discomfort never stays forever, but the strength it creates does. One day, what once felt impossible becomes normal. What once felt painful becomes proof of growth. What once felt lonely becomes evidence of discipline. They realize something others don't. Comfort keeps them the same. Discomfort transforms them, and because they choose growth over ease, they are quietly becoming stronger than they ever imagined. 3. You don't need validation. Your values are enough. They live in a world that constantly asks, how many liked it? Every post, every opinion, every achievement feels like it needs approval. Hearts, shares, comments. tiny digital signals that decide whether they feel worthy or invisible. In today's culture, validation is currency. If people clap, they feel confident. If people stay silent, they start doubting themselves. That's the trap. The problem isn't wanting appreciation. That's human. The problem is outsourcing their self-worth to strangers, algorithms, or even people who don't truly know them. They shrink their opinions to avoid criticism. They exaggerate their success to impress. They hesitate to start something new because they fear judgment. Slowly, they stop living by their values and start living by reactions. But something shifts. They get tired of performing, tired of checking notifications, tired of needing applause just to feel enough. They begin asking deeper questions. Would I still do this if no one saw it? Does this align with who I truly am? That's where freedom begins. The solution is internal grounding. They define their principles clearly. Integrity, discipline, kindness, growth. They measure themselves against their own standards, not public opinion. They act because it's right, not because it's praised. They improve because it matters, not because it's noticed. And here's the hope. When their values become their foundation, criticism loses its sting. Silence loses its threat. Rejection loses its power. Because they are no longer chasing approval, they are building character. And character doesn't fluctuate with likes. One day they realize something powerful. Validation fades. Trends change. Crowds move on, but values endure. And when their values are enough, they become unshakable. 4. You control your tongue. Silence becomes a weapon of wisdom. They've felt it before, that surge. The urge to respond immediately, to defend themselves, to win the argument, to prove they're right. In today's world, everyone has a platform. Group chats explode in seconds. Comment sections turn into battlefields. One misunderstood sentence can destroy relationships. And the pressure is constant. Say something. Clap back. Don't let them disrespect you. That's the trap. The problem isn't speaking. It's speaking without control. Words said in anger linger longer than the emotion that created them. A careless reply can damage trust. A sarcastic comment can plant seeds of resentment. Most people confuse volume with strength. They believe the loudest voice wins, but they are learning something deeper. Real power isn't in reacting, it's in restraint. When tension rises, they pause. When provoked, they observe. When insulted, they measure their response. Silence, in that moment, is not weakness. It is discipline. The solution is intentional speech. They ask themselves, will these words heal or harm? Am I speaking from ego or clarity? Sometimes the wisest response is no response. Sometimes walking away protects more than winning ever could. And here's the hope. When they control their tongue, they protect their peace. They protect their reputation. They protect their future. Silence gives them space to think clearly. It forces others to confront their own noise. Over time, people notice. Their words carry weight because they are rare. When they speak, it matters. They realize something powerful. Anyone can talk. Few can master restraint. And when silence becomes their ally instead of their fear, they move through conflict with calm authority, unshaken, composed, and truly strong. 5. You accept what you cannot change and focus fiercely on what you can. They've spent nights replaying conversations, rewriting the past in their heads, wishing someone had acted differently, wishing life had been fairer. In today's world, uncertainty is everywhere. Layoffs happen without warning, relationships shift overnight, plans collapse, news cycles amplify fear, and the instinct is natural. Control it, fix it, force it back to how it was. But here's the painful truth. Some things are simply outside their hands. They cannot control other people's opinions. They cannot control the economy. They cannot control who stays or who leaves. The problem begins when they fight reality. Resisting what cannot be changed drains their energy. It creates anxiety. It creates bitterness. It keeps them stuck in frustration instead of moving forward. But something powerful happens when they shift perspective. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" they ask, "What can I do next?" That question changes everything. The solution is radical ownership. They focus on their effort, their attitude, their preparation, their response. They may not control the storm, but they control how they stand in it. They update their skills instead of complaining about the market. They improve their communication instead of blaming the relationship. They strengthen their mindset instead of cursing the situation. And here's the hope. When they stop fighting reality, their energy returns. Clarity replaces chaos. Action replaces anxiety. Over time, they become someone steady, grounded, resilient. They realize something freeing. Acceptance is not surrender. It is strategy. By releasing what they cannot change, they gain full power over what they can. And that focus, fierce, disciplined, intentional, is what quietly transforms their life. 6. You forgive, without forgetting lessons. Peace matters more than revenge. They remember the betrayal, the message that changed everything, the lie that exposed the truth, the friend who disappeared when things got hard, the partner who promised forever, then left. In today's world, hurt spreads fast. Screenshots circulate, stories get twisted. People move on publicly while they're still healing privately, and the temptation is strong. Get even. Expose them. Make them feel what you felt. Revenge feels powerful in the moment. It promises justice. It whispers, "You'll feel better once they suffer." But here's the hidden cost. Revenge keeps them emotionally tied to the very pain they're trying to escape. The anger lingers. The resentment replays. The wound stays open. The problem isn't the hurt. It's carrying it for too long. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It doesn't mean allowing disrespect again. It doesn't mean forgetting the lesson. It means choosing freedom over fixation. The solution begins within. They acknowledge the pain honestly. They accept what happened without sugarcoating it. They extract the lesson. Boundaries, discernment, self-respect. Then they release the emotional grip, not for the other person, but for themselves. They decide their peace is too valuable to be controlled by someone else's mistakes. And here's the hope. When they forgive, the weight lifts. Sleep becomes easier. Thoughts become quieter. They stop rehearsing arguments in their head. They stop imagining revenge scenarios. Instead, they grow wiser, stronger, more selective. They realize something powerful. Holding on to anger feels strong, but letting go requires real strength. Peace becomes their priority. Boundaries become their protection. And by forgiving without forgetting the lesson, they step forward lighter, clearer, and no longer chained to the past. 7. You stay disciplined. When motivation dies, you don't negotiate with weakness. They know the feeling. The excitement at the beginning, the surge of motivation on day one, the big goals written down with confidence. But then, it fades. The alarm rings and their body feels heavy. The gym feels optional. The project feels exhausting. The dream suddenly feels distant. In today's world, they're surrounded by instant gratification, endless scrolling, quick entertainment, easy distractions. Motivation competes with comfort, and comfort usually wins. That's the problem. Most people act only when they feel inspired. So when motivation disappears, progress disappears with it. They quit quietly. They postpone until Monday. They tell themselves they'll try again when they feel ready. But they've learned something powerful. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is a decision. There are days they don't feel like showing up. Days when doubt whispers, "Skip it, you deserve a break." Days when weakness sounds reasonable. But they don't negotiate with it. They show up anyway. Not perfectly, not dramatically, just consistently. The solution is simple but uncomfortable. They act based on commitment, not mood. They build routines that remove choice. They reduce distractions. They focus on small, repeatable actions. One workout, one page written, one task completed. And here's the hope. Every time they act despite low motivation, they strengthen their identity. They stop seeing themselves as someone who tries and start seeing themselves as someone who follows through. Over time, discipline compounds, results begin to appear. Confidence becomes earned, not imagined. They realize something freeing. Weakness speaks loudly, but discipline builds quietly. And when motivation dies, they don't collapse. They continue. That's what separates intention from transformation. 8. You choose long-term character over short-term pleasure. They feel the pull every day. The quick dopamine hit, the impulsive purchase, the late-night scrolling, the temporary thrill that promises escape from stress. In today's world, temptation is engineered. Apps are designed to keep them hooked. Ads are personalized to trigger desire. Pleasure is one tap away, and it feels harmless. Just this once. I deserve it. I'll be disciplined tomorrow. That's the trap. Short-term pleasure whispers comfort, but quietly steals consistency. It weakens habits. It delays goals. It builds regret disguised as relief. The problem isn't pleasure itself, it's priority. When they repeatedly choose what feels good now over what builds them later, they slowly erode their own standards. Confidence fades, self-respect weakens, trust in themselves begins to crack. But they've started to see clearly. Every decision is a vote for who they are or who they're becoming. The solution is conscious choice. Before acting, they pause and ask, will this strengthen me or sabotage me? Does this align with the person I want to become? They delay gratification. They set boundaries with themselves. They accept temporary discomfort for lasting strength. They save instead of splurge. They train instead of indulge. They speak with integrity instead of chasing approval. And here's the hope. Long-term character compounds. What feels like sacrifice today becomes freedom tomorrow. Discipline becomes confidence. Integrity becomes reputation. Restraint becomes power. Over time, they no longer feel deprived. They feel in control. They realize something profound. Short-term pleasure fades quickly. Character stays. And when they consistently choose who they're becoming over what they're craving, they build a life that doesn't just feel good for a moment. It feels strong for a lifetime. 9. You remain calm in chaos. While others panic, you observe. They've seen it happen. The sudden crisis at work, the unexpected bill, the heated argument, the bad news that spreads like wildfire through social media. Voices rise, messages flood in. Everyone reacts at once. In today's world, chaos travels fast. Breaking news triggers fear. Group chats explode with opinions. One mistake can go viral in minutes. Panic feels contagious, and the pressure is real. Do something, say something, fix it now. That's where most people lose control. They react emotionally. They make rushed decisions. They escalate situations that needed patience. But they choose differently. They feel the same adrenaline, the same racing heart, the same surge of uncertainty. But instead of reacting, they observe. They step back mentally. They gather information. They separate facts from assumptions. The problem with panic is that it narrows vision. It clouds judgment. It turns small problems into bigger ones. Calm, however, creates clarity. The solution is trained composure. They breathe slowly. They ask, what is actually happening? They focus on what can be controlled right now, one steady decision at a time. And here's the hope. Calm is strength under pressure. When others spiral, they become the anchor. When emotions flare, they become the stabilizer. When confusion spreads, they become the thinker. Over time, people begin to trust them. Their presence alone lowers tension. They realize something powerful. Chaos is inevitable. Panic is optional. By choosing observation over reaction, they protect their peace, their reputation, and their results. And in a world that thrives on outrage and urgency, their calm becomes rare, and that rarity becomes their power. 10. You take full responsibility for your life. No excuses, no victims, only ownership. They've felt the pull to blame, the missed opportunity, the failed relationship, the job that slipped away, the world that seems unfair. In today's world, it's easy to point fingers. Social media teaches comparison. News headlines fuel resentment. Every setback has someone to blame. Excuses feel safe. They protect pride. They shift the discomfort to someone else. The problem is clear. Excuses keep them small. Victimhood keeps them stuck. Blame feels easier than action, but it never builds a future. They feel frustrated, overwhelmed, helpless. The weight of unfulfilled potential presses on their chest. But they've realized something powerful. Growth begins with ownership. The solution is radical accountability. They stop asking, "Why me?" They stop blaming circumstances, people, or luck. Instead, they ask, "What can I do? How can I improve? What is my next move?" They take responsibility for their emotions, their choices, their habits. They learn from mistakes instead of denying them. They design their life intentionally, step by step, even when it's uncomfortable. One small action at a time, one honest admission, one disciplined habit. And here's the hope. Ownership transforms fear into power. Control replaces anxiety. Mistakes become lessons instead of shame. Slowly, they build confidence. Slowly, they build resilience. Slowly, they reclaim their future. They realize something life-changing. The world will never be perfect. People will fail. Challenges will arise. But when they take full responsibility, they are never powerless. They are never helpless. They are always the architect of their life. And that ownership, no excuses, no victims, becomes the foundation for true freedom, growth, and fulfillment. Which of these signs are already woven into the way you live, shaping your decisions, guiding your reactions, and strengthening your character when no one is watching? And which one are you still wrestling with in silence, still struggling to practice consistently, still trying to turn from a weakness into a strength? Be honest with yourself. Not the version you show online, not the version you explain to others, the real you. Growth begins the moment you admit where you stand and decide you're ready to rise. Hit like and subscribe for more content like this.